This recording was made to be listened to slowly, with subtitles on, so you don't just hear the words, you feel them. Let them sink in at your pace. Why is it that so many smart, ambitious, sensitive kids grow up feeling lost, numb, alone? They were the ones who were supposed to make it. The ones teachers praised, parents boasted about, classmates admired. But somewhere along the way, the promise turned into pressure. The praise became a burden. And the very identity that once felt like a gift started to feel like a trap. This isn't just about being intelligent. It's about what happens when your self-worth gets tied to how easily things come to you. When success is effortless, struggle starts to feel shameful. So instead of learning how to work through failure, you learn to avoid it. You play it safe. You only show up when you're sure you'll win. And slowly, your world begins to shrink. You say no to things that might expose you. You drift away from challenges that might make you look average. You don't raise your hand unless you already know the answer. And maybe you've noticed it. The subtle way life keeps getting quieter. Like the world is moving and you're standing still. This video is about that. About what happens when brilliance becomes a box. And more importantly, how to get out of it. Not by being more impressive, but by becoming more human. Let's talk about it. When you're a kid and someone calls you smart, it sticks. It's like a shortcut to being seen. You get attention, approval, a sense of identity. You start to believe it. You start to rely on it. And slowly, you build a whole personality around it. You learn that being smart gets you out of trouble, gets you ahead, gets you praise. But no one tells you the fine print. That the more you believe in being the smart one, the more fragile that identity becomes. Because what happens when things stop being easy? What happens when talent isn't enough? What happens when you finally hit a wall? If your worth is tied to being naturally gifted, then effort starts to feel like failure. You think, if I'm struggling, maybe I'm not actually that smart. And instead of pushing through, you pull back. You stop trying it, not because you don't care, but because you care too much. Because the idea of failing feels unbearable. And this is where it begins. The quiet withdrawal from anything that feels risky. You avoid classes that challenge you. You procrastinate on things that matter. You ghost opportunities because they might expose the cracks. And from the outside, it just looks like laziness, like you're wasting potential. But inside it feels like self-preservation. Like if you stop now, at least no one can say you weren't good enough. And maybe for a while that strategy works. Maybe it even keeps you safe. But eventually the cost catches up because now you're not just afraid of failing. You're afraid of being seen trying. So you start shrinking your world. You stick to what you're good at. You drop the hobbies that don't come naturally. You quit the things that challenge you. You start building a life around control. And you tell yourself it's fine. You tell yourself you're just focused or choosy. But deep down it's fear. The fear of looking average. The fear of being judged. The fear of having your identity questioned. And as your world gets smaller, something else grows. Self-doubt. Imposter syndrome. Shame. Because now you're no longer just avoiding failure. You're avoiding life. You're watching from the sidelines while others stumble, fall, grow, connect. And you're stuck in the loop of overthinking. You think, plan, analyze. You simulate every outcome. You try to mentally master the experience before even living it. But life doesn't work that way. You can't think your way into growth. You can't calculate your way into connection. You have to participate. You have to show up, even when you don't feel ready. So instead of being with people, you start studying them. You watch, observe, try to decode social behavior like it's a logic puzzle. You develop cognitive empathy. You can understand what others feel, but you don't really feel it with them. You're not part of the moment. You're analyzing it. And that works. For a while. You get by. You seem fine. You might even seem charming. But inside, you're exhausted. Because connection was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be lived. But now, socializing is just another thing you feel like you have to be good at. You rehearse conversations in your head. You weigh every word. You try to control how you're perceived. And slowly being around people stops being energizing, it becomes draining. A job, so you retreat further. Not because you don't care, but because caring feels like too much. Because vulnerability feels unsafe. Because being yourself feels like a risk you can't afford to take. So you build a new story. You say, I'm just different. I'm not lonely. I just see the world differently. I'm not disconnected. I'm just on a different wavelength. And maybe some of that is true, But a lot of it is armor, because it hurts to admit you feel left out. It hurts to say, I don't know how to belong. So instead, you convince yourself that belonging is overrated, that you're above surface level connections, that you don't need people who don't get you. And this is where the wall goes up, not around your mind, but around your heart. You become hard to reach, not because no one's trying, but because you've stopped letting anyone in. You've confused self-protection with self-worth. You've mistaken isolation for superiority. But the truth is, you're not above connection. You're aching for it. You just don't know how to ask for it without feeling exposed. So instead of reaching out, you stay in. And the longer you stay there, the more normal it feels, the more permanent it becomes. And eventually, it breaks. Because the identity that once held you together begins to fall apart. You can't keep up the performance. You can't outrun the loneliness. You start to realize that no amount of praise can fix the emptiness, that no achievement can substitute for feeling seen, and maybe you've tried to logic your way out, tried to rationalize your emotions, tried to fix yourself with insight and books and podcasts, but none of it touches the ache, because the pain isn't intellectual, it's emotional, it's human, and when your whole life is built on being exceptional, admitting you're in pain feels like failure. So you don't say anything, you just go quiet. You pretend everything's fine until one day you realize you don't even know who you are without the label, without the praise, without the mask. And that's the moment it hits you. You don't need to be brilliant to be worthy. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You just need to be real. And maybe that's where healing begins. So what now? Now, you begin again. You let go of the pressure to impress. You release the need to perform. You stop trying to be exceptional. And you start practicing being human. You do things badly, on purpose. You start things you might not finish. You speak before you're ready. You allow yourself to be seen, unsure, imperfect, messy. And slowly you build a new identity, not based on how easily things come to you, but based on how bravely you show up. You learn to stay in the room when it's awkward. You stay in the moment when it's vulnerable. You keep trying even when your brain screams, leave. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to be the smartest in the room to feel like you belong in it. You stop guarding your heart like it's a secret to protect and start sharing it like it's a bridge to build. Because belonging doesn't come from being impressive. It comes from being open. And connection? It doesn't require brilliance, it requires presence. That's the new story. And you're allowed to write it, starting now. If any part of this spoke to you, if you felt seen or understood, know that you're not the only one. There's another video waiting for you on the screen. It's a natural next step if you're ready to keep going. And if you want more of this kind of reflection, hit the subscribe button. Not to follow someone else's journey, but to stay connected to your own. Leave a comment if anything here resonated. Sometimes writing it down is the first step to letting it go. And if this helped you even a little, leave a like so it can find someone else who needs it too. Take care of your mind, and I'll see you in the next one.